Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name is Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
I'm Tay.
And this is episode 334, and we are still in our summer pool party. This is not a Patreon pool week and episode, but we're still in the party. You still have your flippy floppies on, your swim trunks, your sunscreen. Put on sunscreen because the UV rays are out in style.
Force.
Tropes. And we have hot dogs on the grill.
Yes. Hot dogs on the Barbie.
Glizzies.
We've got Kenny. Kenny, you're a grill master.
Yeah, Nolan threw hot dogs on there. I don't know why. Like I had some brats on there and
This is the same thing.
significantly better options. The same thing?
Yes, they're both weenies.
Okay.
You weenie.
And I was
Don't
grilling.
say that.
I was grilling corn dogs.
Grilling fried corn dogs.
Yeah, dude. So listen, our summer pool party is in force. Every other week this summer, we are doing a Patreon pool. So if you'd like to be a part of that and you haven't yet, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/NGP podcast. And for as little as $5, you can be a part of that pool where you can submit a game every other week to be a part of this very, very tiny list of games that we grab from. We're going to grab one of those at the end of this episode today.
The list that got us 50-cent bulletproof.
Yeah, right. Not necessarily a strong track record so far, but
Speak for yourself.
Hopefully good ones are coming up. Nolan, Kenny,
What?
do you care about Diablo 4?
I like Kenny answer.
I do.
Good.
I don't.
I'm a perpetual optimist. I have no reason to be excited for it and every reason to think that it will probably not be great, but I'm going to hold out and see.
Okay.
And I think that the game looks bland. Like, I would admit if the game looked cool. I really would. But it looks super boring. And given the recent stuff that Blizzard's been doing with Diablo Immortal, I have zero expectation. I'm going to let Kenny pilot test the game for me and let me know, because I don't plan on purchasing that game.
Wow.
And I'm a huge Diablo fan.
Huge Diablo fan. Kenny, are you going to get it on release?
Yeah, probably.
Around the time. For those of you that don't know, D4 is coming out as a full-price game built. This is what they said, okay? They actually said this recently, that it's coming out as a full-price game built strictly for PC/console audiences. So they're trying to get away from the whole phone, debacle.
Sure.
They said this: the game is huge, and there will be tons of content after launch for all players. Paid content is built around optional cosmetic items and eventually full expansions.
Okay. We'll see.
That's fine.
That's fine if that's true.
I don't like
fine.
it, but it's fine.
Right, that's fine if it's true, but
Right.
also the Diablo Immortal dev said there is no way to acquire or rank up gear using money.
He did say
said that
and it
leading
was
up
a
to
lie.
Oh, $10,000
And then
of a lie.
he tried to backtrack. Like, he answered on Twitter and tried to,
Yeah.
be like, well, that's not what I meant. It's like, no, dude, that's true. They could just be lying. Like, they are just lying. Come on.
So has Diablo just kind of gone downhill since our friend David, backed out of the company?
Yes.
Or backed away from the.
I hate Diablo 3. Kenny,
no.
don't even. Diablo 3 launched, Dustin, with a real money auction house, meaning you get a hype drop. Maybe the drop table was terrible back then, but you got a legendary. You could sell it to someone for cash.
Yeah,
What is that?
bad.
That takes out the magic of Diablo. Loot? Selling it? And then, so they took that out, but still, dude. D2 was such a great game. D3 was not a good... I didn't like it. Some people do. I think D4 is just going to be terrible. I really do.
Yeah.
I played a lot of D3. Yes, Room in the Action
too.
House was a huge mistake. Certainly they didn't do other things correctly. Yes, I think there's better players in the action RPG scene, but
GGG.
still like it, have still enjoyed it, and am optimistic that some lessons will have been learned, but I know that that's naive optimism most likely. So we'll see.
I would love for it to be good. It's a good world. It's a good
It's a wonderful
IP.
Yes,
You
it's
know,
great.
all of those things. I'm kind of leaning towards your side, Nolan, because it's as if there's just this fraternity of game developers and really just video game bigwigs that care about money and do not care about quality or their fans or what their fans want. They just keep doing these other things. But anyway, speaking of fraternity, if we started one, what would it be called? What would you call our fraternity?
I would call it The Boys Are Here to Stay.
Okay, I like that. Although, Kenny, you got to go more traditional fraternity names, nomenclature.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. The Boys Are Here to Stay Alpha.
Kenny?
I'd go pi omega pi.
Okay. And Pi Miss American Omega. I would call it I'd call us, I don't know, Sigma Star
Think about it.
Saga.
That's got a nice ring to it.
What do you
Triple S.
think about that?
I like it.
How do you
Might be
think about calling it shoehorned McTryhard
Alpha.
Alpha?
Like in our retro game of the week. I've been on a plane all night.
I know.
Sigma Star Saga.
Overview.
SSS is a Game Boy Advance RPG and shooter. Not your everyday combo, especially not on the system it's on, which is the Game Boy Advance.
Which is, we all agree, it's the best handheld console that's ever been. It's better than the Switch. It's better than the DS. It's better than the Game Boy. It's better than... Like, there's never been... In fact, it might be the greatest console even that's ever existed.
I don't think... You don't think that. The Switch is better.
There's no bad game on the GBA.
I bet we can find one.
We'll find one eventually.
I mean,
I'm certain.
We played non-good games. I'm just saying that I've really liked most of the GBA games.
One of my favorite things about the podcast is watching your discovery of the Game Boy Advance and the catalog, because I grew up loving it and owning the big hitters, but Dustin just loves... He's like, this exists? Like, how is this so good?
Such an ideal handheld console to own when it came out, man.
Yes,
like, that would have been so much fun. And I even, I'm playing most of these in some kind of emulated state, so I'm seeing it on my screen, which is great. But some of our listeners this week shared some of their actual handheld, either Game Boy Advance or some other kind of handheld thing. And on that smaller screen, it even kind of looks better.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah.
It looks so tight. You know how we play these Sega Genesis games, and a lot of Genesis games have this same kind of visual vibe going on. They can have different aesthetics, but they've got this same kind of color crispness and some other things. GBA is like that. Not the same as Genesis, but it has its unique profile, visual profile, I feel like.
Yes, it's got a visual profile in color and just the pixel art that they used, I feel like was universal, but still developers made it their own. Yeah. And yes, playing it on the actual screen looks so crisp.
So crisp.
This game was developed by WayForward and published by Namco in 2005. And I should know about this game. Being put out by Namco, and they did publish a lot of GBA games. A lot. That name flashed across so many of my games. So maybe it's not that surprising that I'm not familiar with this, but a lot of people in our community, including Garlisle, who plays every game, knows every game, was like, I've actually never really... I don't know much about this game. And I'm assuming that's the case for both of y'all as well.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's just...
in my life.
I mean, for a few reasons, and one of them, I think, is the genre combo that I just mentioned. But just also, 2005, a lot of heavy hitters came out, so we can maybe theorize about why that's the case.
Hey, you mentioned WayForward Technologies. It's not a company that I think we've heard about on the podcast before. I don't think we played a game from them. But they're one of those, companies that are pretty small, but that were contracted by the big publishers to do some games. We came across another one that was kind of like that recently, but they like specialized on like just doing some really good quality things. So they did the Shantae series.
Shantae, that's the big one.
That's I believe that's a Metroidvania, and they did that. They also did the DuckTales remaster.
Oh,
and
nice.
they did a whole variety of handheld games. So yeah.
I think in recent years, they've been tasked with some remakes, but like generally well received. I think this company, they have a lot of games that they've actually worked on. The story of this game is that Earth is under attack by an alien species called the Krill. You play as Wrecker, a space pilot that, I love this, goes undercover in the Krill army to learn from them, gather their tech, but just kind of be an inside man for humans in the enemy's camp. In doing so, you learn about intentions of both parties of the war and learn about biomatter, which is this substance that everybody wants to get. So it becomes like, it's kind of like a race to like this new technology, this dangerous thing. And I really like the setup of this story in this game. I didn't anticipate getting that, but in the first play, I was like, ooh, I kind of like the setup here.
I like the setup. I like the story. It's very hard to read.
Because of the, oh my gosh, it's so fast.
The speed, man.
The scroll speed, it's like Star Wars times 10. It's like,
yeah. You can't read it that fast.
No.
I don't know. You usually want those scrolls to go faster. You don't want this one to go any faster. It's absolutely too fast. But yeah, it's a good story. You know what's interesting? And it's just, we played Quake 4 just a couple episodes ago, and about a quarter of the way through that game, or a third of the way through that game, you become part of that alien species, and then you kind of go in and you're working from that side. And so there's just
we got a theme going on.
They stole from Quake 4.
Are any of you guys double agents?
We wouldn't
Always.
tell you if we are.
No, you have to tell if I ask.
And
like if I'm a cop.
Yeah, that's the rules. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to tell me if I ask.
Gameplay.
This game is very story-based.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think mechanically, some of the mechanics are related and connected directly to the story, but also, like, every place that you're going is building on the story. So at the very beginning of the game, you actually start with a few side-scrolling shooter battles, kind of traditional, kind of like Darius Twin and some of these other like side-scrolling shooting games that we played. But you're doing those battles on Earth, which is interesting. It's got this beautiful background that's parallax scrolling.
I mean, at that point, you don't even know that this is an RPG, you know, an adventure RPG, whatever it is.
Right.
It jumps in and you feel like, oh man, I'm just about to get this space shooter, and that's it. And so the weird twist is actually when you get through that, and then your little character icon pops up on the screen, taking up 80% of it by himself. Yeah, and you're walking around, and it's a little disconcerting at first, but actually a really interesting kind of concept of like hybridizing these two genres.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it reminded me of, Dustin, with the story? When you're flying, like still in the flying section before it reveals the other, you still get text boxes pop up. So I was like, this is Star Fox. Like, you get your character pop up and then some dialogue, and you have your squadron behind you. Rest in peace. But
yeah, so you lose your whole squadron. You take out a Krill ship, like a master ship, and then you go. This is at the very beginning, so it's like a spoiler right up front, but this is a part of the story setup.
Yeah.
And you go to your captain, and you know you've just lost all of your squad, but you took down the enemy, so he toasts with you, and you realize that it's some kind of poison that puts you near death, and that's when you're finally picked up by the Krill. It's to bring you in, and then but you're this chunky, big boy sprite that's walking around this star base, and you can talk with other characters that are on the screen. You can go into different rooms and maybe find some different gun data or something that we'll talk about shortly. But then your main thing that you're doing the rest of the game is going planet to planet. It's your stages, it's your environments, and they're fairly traditional. You've got a fire-themed planet. You've got an ice-themed planet. A forest-themed planet.
Yeah, you
so
start in the forest. Yeah,
it's traditional in that sense. But what you're doing on each of those planets are walking. You've got different tasks depending on the planet, but you're walking around, fighting random battles, picking up new gun data, which that's a conversation, and you're trying to do a task or two on the planet that is again progressing the story, that's moving the story along.
You say random battles, and there are random battles where like people pop up while you're walking around and you have to shoot them. But the real random encounters that are happening aren't happening right there where you're walking around. They take an interesting sort of story beat to explain it, but basically your random battles take you back up into this shoot 'em up environment where you have just a short segment, relatively short segment usually, of going up into space and being a pilot kind of mixed into the rest of this story. And so you get random encounters, but not like a typical RPG. The random encounters zoop you up into space and you gotta go pew pew pew.
It makes that noise. Wait, there's so much to talk about. Hold on, we're going too fast. Hold on. This game is insane. All that's insane. None of that's normal.
To say
that is all insane.
Let's start with the shooting side because that's the first thing that you are thrown into. The first stage sucks.
Yes, it does not start. It starts strong story-wise, but not mechanically.
Mechanically, it is garbage. Everything's moving too fast, first of all. And even after you discover you have if you hold B, you can move faster. It's still too fast. And the screen, you don't have enough time to react to the things coming. And this is even worse than, we've played a lot of shooters. Even in recent, in the last year, we've played a lot of shooters. And I'm trying to think of one that was, really difficult. I think it was Ikaruga. Even that one, you still could think for a second before navigating it or shooting the thing. These things are just, it's aggressive, guys. And it's a GBA screen.
Right, but the thing that's nice is that it's not one-hit kill. You've got a life bar, and so
it's weird.
You're still surviving, and you can fairly easily make it through that first stage, even if you're not killing everything, because you've got a life bar, and as long as you preserve that and don't just waste it. I know that in your first play, I think you died at the boss the first time, maybe, Nolan, or getting close to the boss, and so you just you ran it back, and you did so much better. Yeah, it is fast, and you can't just hold down shoot.
That's the other
problem. At the beginning,
problem.
You're mashing.
Big problem. I had hand problems, in the first stage. Thankfully, it changes later a little bit.
Yes.
After you implement the gun data, but you have to mash really fast, and it's still not shooting that fast. It's a bad first stage. I'm mad at them that is the intro to the shooting segment of this game, which is a major part of the game.
Very frustrating first stage. And it changes a lot. Some things, and yes, some things get better, but reveals some things that continue to be a problem with the shooting elements of this game. Hitboxes are kind of crazy.
Not generous.
Not generous at all. If you think you might be thinking about running into something, you're dead. And you lose some HP. The fact that when you do lose HP, you actually do look like you die.
It's weird.
But then show back up again is weird and a strange mechanic. Why don't you just move the bar and then keep your
it's an interesting choice
where it is. Weird, inconsistent environmental elements. Some things you have to dodge and some things you don't, and you can't always tell which is which. Or shooting your way through the caves and not knowing what to do before you get to some of those things.
Or dodging XP because you think it's bullets.
Because you thought they were bullets.
And XP that looks exactly like bullets, but you have to manually collect it for no good reason.
That,
I've got more. You've got bombs and then other kinds of bombs, and there's no reason for that, and it's strange and kind of confusing, although one of them's useful and the other one you don't ever use.
He wants you to stop talking.
I want you to stop being mean to this game.
There are a lot of really sus choices about how they implemented the shooter portions of this game.
That's all I'm trying to say.
A lot.
I don't think the game probably shines in the shooting portion. However, I think a lot of those complaints, not all of them, but I think a lot of them are assuaged as you progress. A lot of our community this week had a rough experience at first. I didn't, but I also watched Nolan's first play, so I kind of got the vibe, and so I like some of that like undercurrent of difficulty or frustration of figuring it out. Nolan did for me, so I was able to kind of like just step into it a little bit.
It was a test pilot.
But a lot of people kept coming into Discord this week saying, what is going on?
Yeah.
There's no auto fire and this problem. And I kept saying, like, just give it a little bit of time, give it a little bit of time. Because it's story based, not all of it, but at least like that smashing the button thing. The big part of this game is finding and collecting and assigning gun data. Can we talk about it?
Let's talk about gun data.
That's a super cool feature.
It is. Okay. Data or data, doesn't matter, and when and why.
Data.
It does meta.
Stop. Both of you.
Okay, Nolan, you said data. I think Kenny.
It's situational for me.
Answer,
I use it.
It
depends.
Whether it's a verb or a noun.
Hey, gun data,
I just
guys.
pronounce it differently depending on the situation, and it's fine to go both ways.
There are 3 kinds of gun data that you can collect, and you collect it when you're outside of the ship, never inside of the ship.
Yes.
Right.
And you, so you can get your cannon. That's a type of upgrade or data that you can collect, and that determines the direction and the manner of shot in your ship. You can collect bullet gun data, which determines the shot type, and then you can collect impact gun data, which determines what happens to your bullet when it strikes an enemy.
When it hits, yeah.
And when you collect those, you can select any of the first, any of the second, any of the third to make up to 15,680 combinations by the end of the game.
I think it's just a flashy number.
I tried most of them.
No, you didn't.
You just sat there.
That's so many.
Right.
But you get these along the way, and so over time and relatively quickly, but it does take a little bit, you're able to not just mash down the button anymore. You can find some gun data and then just hold down the button if you would like.
And then
depending on which gun data you find.
Wide shot is also like really OP in this game,
nice.
again, because the screen's kind of just smaller.
And some of the other things that are probably still badly implemented, you will also get used to. I still think there are some problems there. But in any system, and we run into this with like platformers that have weird float mechanics. Like you play in it long enough and you kind of get used to it. I don't think that excuses some of those choices, but the more you play this, the better you will be at the shooter elements, as imperfect as they are.
The gun data system's really cool because it does play back into that RPG style setup. And when I initially was introduced to that top-down view of Wrecker, I was like, okay, this is going to be like Gargoyle's Quest, where y'all's complaint was pointless to like break up the gameplay style. But because I thought when you first do it, it's like you said, Dustin, just story, just talking, like you would in an RPG. Talk to all the town members, and that's it. But it's so much more than that. It's an actual, like, I'll make this comparison after playing more of the game. Blaster Master. 2 different gameplay styles. The top-down view really reminded me of that because you're shooting. Like you've got weapons, you've got your HP bar, you're collecting the gun data, and you're interacting with enemies on the top-down screen, and it's much more than just talking and story. You do get that, but it's an action. The change of pace between the shooter and the top-down was like chef kiss. It was a really nice blend. And then, like Kenny mentioned, random encounters being shooters. What is this game? I was like, what is
I
happening?
loved the lore reason behind it. You know, I like story,
Yes.
but they have a story reason behind it, because when you're going to planets, your star base is docked on a planet, but since you're working with the Krill, your ships are living. They're living fighters, and so they're up in space, kind of just moving around, and they're set loose to patrol. Well, when they sense trouble, they summon the nearest pilot from the planet up for battle. And so I love random battles in RPGs. Final Fantasy, they always had them, right? Those random encounters.
Yep.
This is like that, but instead of like remaining there where your fighter fights with a weapon, your fighter ascends into a ship, and then you have a side scroll. I've never seen it done before, and I don't think it's ever been done before.
It's almost like they built this game for you, Dustin, because you get so hyped when we play RPGs, and you get so hyped when we play space shooters, and just absolutely love it. And so all week I just kept thinking, like, I'd bet Dustin is loving this.
And then put it on the GBA, like they're just like, what would Dustin?
It's just the implementation of both were just really well done. I expected one of the gameplay styles to suffer, and if I had to choose one, I would choose the shooter.
And Kenny's saying for sure the shooter.
For sure the shooter, but it gets much better once you unlock some stronger upgrades, and that's how progression should work in a RPG, even if it's a pseudo RPG.
Yeah, it's nice that they're complementary. It does mean that when you're out in the world and like doing exploration, that you get something meaningful out of that. The fact that you've got to find that gun data is a little bit annoying, because like, what happens if you miss an important piece of gun data? And what ends up really happening is that it forces this sort of exploration sort of piece of this game that I don't know that it necessarily needs. Especially because so much of that ends up kind of meaning you got to do a bunch of backtracking, and that can be really frustrating for some people as well. So I like the implementation, love the hybridized version, but there is some frustration that comes along with it.
It's a good point to bring up, because when you're in the overworld, so when you're your big character and you're walking around on a planet, you're searching for items, searching for data, and you're doing a task or two on each planet. But your character, are also throughout the story gaining new abilities, or your abilities are expanding. So you just kind of start with a gun, and do you also start with the little? No, you don't. I think you're able to get the scanner that can.
Yeah, you get it early, but you don't start with it.
You can find hidden buttons that can then move down spikes to allow you to progress, and you end up getting these items that you can use to fight the enemies that you come into contact with in that mode, but also to unlock new areas. So it's Metroidvania in that perspective, in that like you get new items, it opens new areas. But I do agree with you, Kenny. There are two things that drove me crazy in this game, and one of them was the amount of backtracking. Like, this exploration, backtracking, I don't mind a little bit of light exploration, but this is if like you didn't go in one area or missed one spot. It's going all the way back there, and with the amount of random battles, and that's the second thing that got me, is the amount of those. It just slows down the pace tremendously.
This was common for GBA games for some reason. Backtracking, that's a common complaint, like almost across the board.
It lengthens the game,
Yeah, and I did feel that, but it wasn't so bad that like I felt the need to bring it up as like a big negative, because like you're still getting those story beats along the way, at least here and there, and I love that they stay true to that. Like when you go up to, like, there are a couple moments where you check in with your commander, Tierney, on the computer, and he's, like you get reminded, like, oh yeah, I'm a double agent.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, the story beats, which I think were done very well, helped with not feeling like the game was getting stale because I kept having to backtrack. Also, I wasn't trying to get all gun data, because you do get a secret ending, I think, if you collect them all. But I wasn't interested in doing that, so I didn't spend too much time worrying about it.
Did y'all get into the game far enough where it starts to become a soap opera, where you meet a girl and then another girl, and one is a krill and one is a human, and the drama begins? Yeah.
I'm Team Krill.
Well, why?
Best grill is Krill. Know what I mean?
Because he's into Sime is why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
Which it should certainly be Simey or something, but she clarified that it
you.
rhymes with rhyme.
Yeah.
She
That's
said
good.
it rhymes with rhyme.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a Sime boy.
I'm a Sime
Kenny?
boy.
No, I'm Team Earth.
Why?
Wow,
'Cause.
speciesist much.
Xenophobe.
Oh,
Because I don't know that you're a human. You could be in disguise.
if any one of us three was an alien.
Was
It's
lizard folk,
definitely-
it would be me.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
probably true. I'm not though, and I would have to tell you if I was.
What is this rule?
Are you a cop?
And I don't exclude, so I accept them both.
Cop out.
I think that's a special ending if you collect all the gun data.
They both survive? Okay.
But
Aged.
I know we're gonna jump into talking about music and look and all those things, and I welcome it. But we were just talking about some important character things, and I need you guys' opinions because I didn't like Wrecker. Like he's
The main-
just kind
main
of
character?
awful. Yeah, and so I had a hard time caring. I don't know. He's just weird and abrasive and for no reason and kind of like
for no
pointlessly
reason.
angsty. Yeah, pointlessly angsty and
This
Kenny.
kid lost all of his co-pilots and then was poisoned by his commander and then turned over to the enemy. What are you talking about?
he was poisoned by his commander as the method of doing something he had just agreed to do.
Yeah, but it was kind of
Run
shady
around
the way they
shooting
did it.
humans and being like, "Oh man, I don't want to be shooting humans, but there's a greater good here." I didn't, and then just the way he talks and carries himself, he's not somebody I want to be friends with.
So you think he's not well written?
I think he's a wreck.
Okay.
Of a character.
Final Fantasy has done worse, Kenny, for main characters and angst. So my opinion, to answer your question, is I think he's a fine main character. I didn't absolutely love him, but I thought he was cool. So
I like Wrecker. I like protagonists in RPG that have dialogue. I don't prefer the silent protagonists.
gotcha. And he be talking.
He
A lot.
He be talking.
Yeah, and I liked the other characters as well. Some of the like, this isn't a. I think I don't know what rating this game has, but like on
Yeah.
it's whatever
Maturity.
rating. Yeah. But there are some like mature themes here, and there's even one like fade to black might be a SEX scene, and like I'm like, this is
On
a
Game Boy
GBA game for kids. Yeah, on Game Boy Advance, someone playing in the back of the van.
I mean, yeah, maybe. It definitely is a SEX scene.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what-
not a scene, but
I mean, yeah, that's not a scene. Okay, graphics look great, but not my favorite style. It does look like the Shantae games that WayForward has done in some regards. It's just not a platformer, but it's still the big, like, sprites, and they look
Chunky.
good. Like the idle animations look really cool. Like Wrecker in the krill suit looks very cool. It's just not. I don't know. There's something about it that I just don't love.
I think you need it, and I know that's not like just alone a great reason, but again, we're not playing handheld at arm's length, and when you are, you've got to have those details big enough that you can follow what's going on. And so I think it's just a reality that's comes from, you know, necessity of like them recognizing this is a handheld title and kind of leaning into that.
it's not my preference. I think it does take a little bit of getting used to. The side scrolling I thought was great, but those chunky, the chunky, you know.
You keep
bits of
saying
that-
chunky like this is soup or something.
It's chunky.
They're-
that boy
They're
is
large.
That boy is thick. when
That
he
boy's
comes
thick.
on the
I've got the
screen.
word chunky and clunky in my notes, Kenny. He's right. It's clunk.
I wrote down chunkiest of character sprites, and it is a lot, but it is a certain aesthetic. So I would get if it's not preference, but I think it looks good. And what I like when it comes to the art in particular, I love when any game does this, but I love those, man, I'm blanking right now on what they're actually called. The portraits. The little portraits when dialogue comes up.
Yeah.
I love that because it always gives you a more realistic or better, or I think in this sense, kind of like anime-esque looking character sprite so that you can really see the character that you're working with. And I always love when games have that.
Yes. Added to the story and the feel of it all.
I mentioned it earlier, but I loved the backgrounds and the foregrounds. It is confusing as to what is foreground and what is background from time to time, and that's frustrating. But I thought the stages looked good, and the parallax scrolling on the shooting stages, man, just added to the immersion. And I thought those shooting stages looked so good.
A lot of variety there too. Like it didn't feel
based
samey.
on the planet that you're around often.
Pretty good looking
and we
visuals.
didn't even mention, was this a frustrating thing to you? I think it was frustrating to some of our listeners and viewer and those in our community this week. But when you're ported up to a ship for these battles, it's a random ship. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 different kinds of ships, and so sometimes it can be these sleek speedsters, and sometimes it could be this chunky. I use chunky again, but like this big ship that moves slow.
I prefer all of the Krill ships to that first stage human ship. Yes, it wasn't that frustrating to like have a different one. Is that what you're saying? Like instead of having like this is my ship,
the same
I've customized
one.
it.
Right.
I thought it was kind of fun actually to have a little variety there. I think they were all better than that first stage.
Yeah, agreed, and agreed about variety as well. Yeah, it at least made it a little less tedious. And again, there were probably a few too many of those encounters anyhow. I know that's the kind of main gameplay, so you need to have it. But agreed, Dustin, they popped up pretty frequently, and it felt disruptive sometimes.
Yeah. I wonder if there is gun data or an item you can get at some point in the game that would allow you to like momentarily pause random encounters. You need them. It's a big part of the game, and it helps your ship level up and you be able to fight future enemies. But it would be nice to be able to just explore in peace every once in a while.
Yeah, that might exist. Music.
I loved it I loved the thematic planet music. I loved even the opening stage on Earth music.
That one was good.
I loved all the music.
Menu music was really good too. Love that.
It felt a little canned to me. Not bad, but just sort of predictable. Like it felt like a lot of other games. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there were moments that I was like, oh yeah, this would be the overworld music, and kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. Man. But it was pretty well done. I do think the sound effects were great.
Yes.
And that helps in a huge way for like immersion. And so I think a lot of thought went into the sound. I wish the music had been a little bit more creative or inspired or unique or something.
The enemies you faced in the overworld, when they like jumped at you or were shot, they make this little squeal. And sometimes like when something was revealed or said, you would hear one of the girls gasp or something. Like I just thought some of those sound effects, I agree with you, were expertly done. Yeah. When it comes to these GBA titles, I fawn over them often. I just think so many of them age impeccably. I think they look so good. I think they sound so good. I think they play so good. I know this isn't across the board, but man, there's some kind of quality about these. Again, like I say with the Genesis games, most of the Genesis games we play, I'm always remarking on how good it looks. Or there's something about these GBA titles that just seem to age so well.
I agree. I always thought that too. I just feel like Game Boy Advance was such a pocket in time of art style that doesn't really age because pixel art exists and is always quality. And so you had more to work with on the screen. And I think developers that made handheld titles had really good ideas, even on the original Game Boy. It's just they were limited. But with the Game Boy Advance, it was expanded, much more memory to work with on that console. And so you just ended up with an art style that didn't age and then some sick ideas that they could actually execute. And man, it's such a good console. It ages great. Yeah.
Handheld, especially this era of handhelds, definitely ages pretty well generally.
There's no other game in the Sigma Star Saga universe.
Really?
This
I'm
is
surprised.
So
a one.
it's not actually a saga.
I mean,
Sigma
yeah.
Star Story would have been a better title.
Silver Star Story. It is already. It's compact. This is it. I don't know
Wow.
if it. I didn't get to the end. I want to still play it. I didn't have enough time to finish the game this week. I don't think it's a long game. I don't remember
It's
how
not
long.
short either, though.
Well, what are you talking about? I'm thinking like, I don't, 8 to 10 hours, something like that.
Yeah, short for an RPG. Super long if you were calling it a shoot 'em up.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's fair.
yeah, true, very
Like
true.
it lives somewhere in the middle of the two
Yeah.
genres that it is.
Yeah. If you want a copy of this game for your Game Boy Advance, it's a little bit. It's $44 used, and it's looking to be $100 new currently.
Okay. It's probably because it's the only one in the whole thing. I could have sworn there'd be a sequel or something.
Well, and I don't think, like, the three of us didn't know about it, so I think probably
Maybe.
it wasn't, they didn't make tons of them compared to
Right.
some other GBA titles.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the votes to swing one way or the other. It's obvious from me. I loved this game. Every bit of it. The frustrating part was the backtracking, the exploration that would be interrupted by the random encounters, but the random encounters were fun for the most part. Like, I enjoyed the random encounters. I enjoyed collecting the gun data. I love the story. I just love how story infused this game is. It's imperfect. I think it is a little bit rough up front because they kind of just push some things on you without kind of any getting used to or knowing why. And so I think if you play 30 minutes, you might not like this game. But I feel like if you play an hour, 2 hours, falls into 3, I think you're going to find a lot to love here. I can't believe that it was such an unknown title. There's got to be a story there. I don't know what it is, but I'm glad that I know it now. I definitely give it my vote for New Game Plus status. Put together a side-scrolling shooter and an RPG on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
It really was.
No
made
one's
for you.
surprised that you
Yeah.
landed there
I
at all.
love this game. I love this game and intend to finish it.
See, I flopped back and forth on this one all week. The concept is fun. I love that they took a risk and combined kind of the different genres into a single game experience. The story was mostly enjoyable, but I just felt myself rolling my eyes every time I got sucked up into space for an impromptu fight. Partly because of the frequency of that, and partly just because of some of the ways they implemented the shooting elements that just kind of got under my skin. The fighter customizations and how they justified that in the story was great. Absolutely love it. But I think that there were enough annoyances with kind of the main gameplay element that just got under my skin that I just had a hard time really truly committing to it as hard as I think I maybe could have if they didn't bug me. So I love the concept, but I'm not in love with the implementation. And so I'm going to go no New Game Plus for me, but not like you should never play this game ever. It's got some great things about it. Just nah, it didn't quite do it for me.
Boo.
I have the power.
You got the power.
Well, I'm starting to realize that I am a really big fan. Well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of compilation games. WarioWare Inc. is a great example. And it's because you have a bunch of different games in one, and when it works, it works. And then we played Gargoyle's Quest 2. I liked that because changing up the pace. It's just... So, Kenny, when you got sucked up into a random encounter battle, I was like down every time. Because it's just in a completely different gameplay than the rest of the game. And it just works for me. It's fresh every time. It just feels fresh. And I like the feeling of that. But I was so impressed with the top-down aspect of the game. That whole portion, just when you're exploring, when you're fighting, when you're collecting, and then when you're just chilling and talking and getting story. It's a fantastic game. It looks great. Still not my favorite style, but they did it really well. I can't believe this is not a very popular GBA game. Like, I should be hearing people reference this game often when talking about classics on the system. Absolutely New Game Plus. It is awesome. Sign Best Grill.
I bet you love turducken.
Turducken?
Yeah, it's because it's smashing together different things.
I've never had it. I bet I would
one.
really like it. Yeah.
That means Sigma Star Saga is New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? We had an all-time low of votes on YouTube this week. 201.
Krill
12%,
haters.
12% said yes. Only 3% said no.
No one's played it. That's why. No one's
But
played it.
85% have never played it before. 85%.
What the heck?
Yeah, this one's not on anybody's radar.
Namco.
Many from our community wrote in this week. Super Gamer Guy said, Sigma Star Saga shines brightest in its characters and plot progression, which is a shame considering the sorry state of its gameplay. While the visuals are good and the music is decent, the moment-to-moment gameplay feels like a slog more often than an adventure. The overworld combat is highly unnecessary, especially since it doesn't earn the player any experience. The random shmup battles are repetitive and lacking in unique content. Little issues crop up from time to time as well, like how your early game weapons are largely useless compared to your default pea shooter, and some added turbo functionality. The shmup segments also don't distinguish background details from deadly obstacles. It doesn't help that the variety in your ship weapon loadout is next to nothing, or that you can't even access the menu in random battles to change it. I respect the game's development team for attempting to meld together so many different gameplay and story elements into one experience, much like Turducken. But I'm just let down in the end by all of Sigma Star Saga's shortcomings, of which there are many. No NGP from me. Ooh.
What?
Seems like we're the same person.
I don't know.
You're not.
I'm not.
At least I'm not alone.
I'm not feeling you on that one, Super Gamer Guy. Garlisle said, this game is conceptually very neat. Ellipses. However, I've got a growing list of problems. Long backtracking segments, abrupt difficulty spikes, which are really just grind checks, bland stages, tons of gun parts which are actively useless, and constant button mashing to deal reasonable damage with most parts. The breaking point came on the 5th planet, where destroying the wrong enemy last would get you permanently locked in combat due to a bug. If that didn't stop you, the random ship assignment and encounters could hand you a big chungus for a mini-boss with tiny corridors and dense bullets, making it completely unavoidable and almost always unsurvivable. It's a demonstration of the fundamental problems of the game and its poor quality control. I didn't want to push through that specific garbage no matter how good the story and characters are, and they are good. But even if I know way forward for great games, this stumbles on its promise and potential.
Man,
I know.
That's
2.
The first stage, yeah, I'll give it to you. Just bad. But no, Kenny, you're not right. You're right.
Never.
Don't get it twisted.
But Garlisle,
Everyone agrees with me about everything.
Garlisle said it came to the 5th planet, but like, man, that's deep into the game.
And that's okay. One thing, like everything.
It's not like he got to the 5th planet and then got frustrated. He was frustrated with all those things all the way through and was putting up with it. He just found a breaking point. It's not unreasonable.
I think he was looking for it to be like a shmup or a fantastic shmup, and it's not.
I think
it's not.
I think Garlisle wanted it to be Tohu 7 Perfect
Always.
Cherry Blossom.
Perfect Cherry Blossom.
Perfect Cherry. Habani Gaming said, admittedly, I haven't played yet much of the game this week, but what I have played, I've enjoyed. I could spend some time complaining about a few aged quality of life issues that could be solved with the modern port, but the most telling thing to me is that every time I put the game down, I know I want to come back for more. That detail alone tells me that Sigma Star Saga is NGP for me. Who knew the GBA had a game with more depth than Shrek, Hassle at the Castle?
Hey now.
You're an all-star.
I really wish I would have had this game back in the heyday when I'm in the back seat and I've got my Game Boy Advance, because this would have been a perfect one to sink a ton of time into. It reminded me a lot of my time with Mega Man Battle Network. For some reason, it just, I don't know, it just did. Maybe the Talking Heads. But I would have played this game a lot.
I feel like a few things: talking heads, chunky character sprites there again, and even aren't you like collecting like upgrades that you can?
Reminded me
like,
of chip gathering in Battle Network. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you want to get your game on, go play.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for talking to him because I wasn't going to. Let's finally end with Clint saying there's something really spectacular in here. I just know this is gonna be.
It's gonna turn worse. Everyone's salty.
They always, they're all like, "Oh, this is a really great game."
Come
if
on.
it wasn't, anyways, he says there's something really spectacular in here, but it risks being overshadowed by weird design choices that seem to really cause issues in the latter portions of the game. I love the random assortment of ships, each with its own speed, weaponry, and size. There comes a huge issue when you're forced to use one of these ships against enemies or on stages that it's big impossible to avoid heavy damage. The gameplay is really cool. The gun data system is a great way to encourage varied play styles, but with only one custom loadout, many of these weapons will never be utilized. For all the things I really like about the game, there is a list nearly as long of excuses. I wouldn't call it a bad game, and I have had a wonderful time with it this week, but it's not going to be for everyone.
So, it's good.
Yeah, so it's a great game.
It's a great game.
Some people might not like it. Yeah, I agree.
I think everyone has their thoughts, but I'm just hearing a lot of like trying to find trying to find reaching
problematic game.
No,
that a
it's
few people
not.
are gonna like.
It's fun.
As I'm listening to these comments, I'm just kind of hearing like a lot of bad gamers.
Get good first.
I mean, that is true in my case, but it's certainly not true for some of the folks that wrote in.
It's as if you can't go into a side-scrolling shooter with a big chungus and still do some work. I'm sorry that you're not good.
I could do some work with a big chunk.
This is an interesting split, though. This is an interesting split in our community.
It's an interesting split where only Nolan and I and maybe one other person like it. Yeah. All right. Listen. It already got its vote. Thank you for sending in your commentary. We were not able to read all of them, but you can submit your commentary on the Retro Game of the Week each and every week to ngppodcast@gmail.com or hop into our Discord. We've got a commentary channel there. We'd love to read your thoughts. But for now, we're going to put aside Sigma Star Saga. And we're not randomly selecting because, guys, I told you up front, it is a summer pool party, which means it's a Patreon poll.
We're jumping back in.
Go on another hot dog for me.
Do y'all got a snorkel? Because I'm going under.
I'm drowning.
Hot
Help!
dogs. Leave him. Leave him.
Pass the corn dog. I got the ketchup.
Marco.
Who? That's me dying.
That's me drowning. All right. From our patron submitted games, we've got games like this. By the way, looking through, it looks like the most submitted are two different ones. Fable, which we've had for a while now.
Yeah.
And this time it looks like there's a good amount of Final Fantasy 9s.
I am not feeling lucky for those people. I don't think it's going to be either one. I think it's going to be something
I
random.
don't think this is the week that I want to play either title, and so I'm
bad.
Rooting for an underdog here.
We've also got, here's a few others. Garlisle said, let's play Advance Wars Dual Strike or Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. I've never played any of the Phoenix Wright
Wars
Lawyer games.
I want y'all to play Advanced Wars. So
Jessica's got Bubsy on there and Astro Boy, Omega Factor. We've got from Thomas, we've got Jagged Alliance 2 and Planescape Torment. From Starquake, we've got Rolo to the Rescue. It's a Genesis game. And Day of the Tentacle. I think that's one of those story games.
Okay.
Let me read a couple more. Mr. Lattes put James Pond 2 Robocod on there.
No.
Yeah.
Robocod?
Robocod.
He's trying to punish us.
And let's read one more. Matthew put Chibi Robo and Chibi Robo Park Patrol. So we're all over the board here.
All over the map.
Okay.
Or board. Randomizing now.
It's a map.
(2006). Are we even allowed to do that?
Wait. So we've gone 2005, 2005, and now we're 2006.
We're just moving to the future.
Keeps moving forward, guys.
Okay.
Time keeps on ticking.
Is this a song? Listen,
I love
we're
the
gonna be
2000s.
playing a Dixie Chicks. They're not even Dixie anymore. They're just the Chicks. We're gonna be playing a first. Do y'all not know that?
They dropped the
first
Dixie?
person. Yeah, first person action role playing game.
First person action. Okay.
All right.
Came out in 2006.
So it's not
for the PC and then just a little bit later for the Xbox 360.
Okay.
Published by Ubisoft.
Okay.
Developed by Arcane Studios.
Okay.
It is got to be somewhat connected to a game or two that we played on the podcast before. We are going to be playing the game that was submitted by two of our patrons, Dominique and Captain Protein, for the next 7 days. As a part of our Patreon pool, we are going to be playing Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Wait. Is this Kenny's Might and Magic?
Well, this is first person.
I love the Might and Magic series.
That's the series, right?
Yeah, but you didn't play the first person stuff. Didn't you play like the top down
We did.
stuff?
We played the top down.
No, we did, and we played one of the early ones on the show, if you remember.
7
the
and
multi-party where you've got your face on the screen and
Yes,
you're running around
yes,
dungeon crawling from a first-person
remember.
perspective. Those were way earlier, and you guys weren't
Hey.
classy enough as gamers to get into it.
I'm
pumped.
I'm down for a more modern entry. I think I would maybe vibe with that more than the dated ones that we've played.
The older ones definitely feel... Well, I don't know. I haven't played this one. I have no idea, but I would assume that there's been some evolution there in the genre. So
is this
I'm
just someone
excited.
else's take of Skyrim? First
But
person.
this is before
action
Skyrim.
role-playing?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Skyrim is this game, actually. I have no idea. I can't even answer that question because I don't know.
All right.
I'm
Find a
excited.
copy and play along with Dustin, Nolan, Kenny, Dominique, and Captain Protein this week. Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Join Discord or else. Or your krill fish. Just go to discord.gg/newgameplus and join our Discord where you can talk about the game of the week and maybe get plugged in and become a patron and submit your own game for the next entry in the pool party.
Love the game that got picked. You could have your game get picked. Hate the game that got picked. You could make sure we get a better game.
Nice.
Now is the time to become a patron. Summer Pool Party just means you're going to have even more influence than you'd have all the rest of the year. And there's some sweet perks that make it worth it all the rest of the year, too. So if you've been listening to the podcast but haven't become a patron yet, now is the time. You'll be joining Derek and Megadeth859 who became patrons for the first time this week. So thanks, guys. And that will put you in the company of some amazing people like our directors, Bro Jim and Garlisle, who just go way above and beyond. Here's to y'all. And our large list of producers, including Adam, Marley, and Anton, and Ben, Brunt, Captain Protein, Dan, D.H. Bowser, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nick Nack, Corey, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Nawal, Sajin, Shauna Thomas, Unbedictable, William, and Zion. Thank you guys so much. You're the best.
You forgot Tay.
You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Subscribe, please, so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. Until then, I'm still right about this game, and if you disagree with me, you disagree with God.
I'm excited for next week's game, and I won't disagree with you again, ever.
I'm Tay.
This is really good at this point. And this has been New Game Plus.